Hello, welcome again, friends. Hi to everyone. Today, I'm gonna try to talk about the one of the main world events or news item, or maybe a couple of them. Got a few things to talk about. News, basically. As I've been doing in the last few days, I will start with Russia or Ukraine. Today, President Putin of Russia addressed and also took part in a question and answer session at the Valdai Discussion Club. This is an event organized, I think it's an annual event, and quite a lot of people came from different parts of the world, including some NATO countries. Um, I will just try and pick on a few points that President Putin made during the discussion. According to him, he stated that the Western world trying to simplify everything, and also they are trying to erase any differences in their view of the world or what they felt the world should be like. And in this regard, it appears to him, or he believes, and I'm sure many people in the global south or in other countries, he believes that the West has got a blinding arrogance, that they've got some sort of belief of superiority in their argument, that the argument they are always right and other people are wrong. And I recollect quite clearly a few years ago at the university, there was a topic on discrimination and racism. And the new definition that we were given was, or I was taught, is that in the modern day, people don't just say, well, unless the person is completely stupid, that they are better than you simply because of the skin color. But what the argument that is not being used is my culture or my way of life is better than yours. If your way of life or culture is different, then they tend to look down on you and think you must be stupid or you're not good enough. It gives them some sort of superiority that you know. Um, and also there's the he also talk about the idea of um, Western liberalism, which which has changed to a position of absurdity, and that alternative users of people that have different view about the liberalism are declared to be subversive and threat to democracy. Where the Newcon view is that and according to the same set of people that promote rule-based order, which I will come to in a short while, as soon as things begin to work for other countries or other regions, the rules will be changed or abolished because the his argument was those are only made to serve the interest of these so-called masters or people that see themselves as masters. And I think he's quite right in that regard. I read an article today in The Guardian, or recently, a publication in The Guardian anyway, and I've been following this for some time. The European Union seems to be against the idea of East African um, developing or building an oil pipeline that will serve a few East African countries because for some reason they seem to have suddenly have the moral belief that okay, this will increase carbon footprint and environmental damage and so on and so forth. But what this same country, the EU country, and some Western countries seems to have forgotten is they've done the same thing to develop their countries. And secondly, there was a time that this country, I think in the COP 26 or 27, this conference about global emission and so on and so forth, and we're putting pressure on other countries not to use some certain type of fuel, even though this fuel are cheaper. And this is the same fuel they've used to develop the Western world. The double standard and the hypocrisy of this idea was exposed when suddenly Europe faced or had the energy crisis, which we are still facing in Europe. One of the first things they did was to open their coal mine again or start using the coal fire, which in the past they put pressure on the country that are poorer than them that did not have the technology nor the finance or money to build certain this so-called clean energy. Okay. Um, Similar also, you can actually see how the so-called rules are being moved. You know, this was said by Putin. I'm just giving an example, just to say yes, he actually made a very good point. Until recently, sports and politics are separate. But when the European countries, which dominated, by the way, the world football, you go to World Cup or all this big competition, nearly 60% of the countries participating there are European countries, with a token number of slots for other countries. Initially, it used to be just one that represent Africa and maybe one also to represent Asia. Even though they got bigger population, it's like a token to actually say, yeah, we're actually having a proper World Cup. But really, in reality, they do not expect, they don't want, and they do not expect the African country or some of these so-called minor football countries to win. Not just football, the other competitions anyway. Anyway, Russia was banned from the World Cup and actually banned from playing in Europe. In the past, what used to happen is if there is a concern by the sporting authority, they will ask the party to play their games or partake in a competition in a neutral on a neutral ground. But in this time around, it was banned, and we are at the moment facing another issue whereby simply because Iran is alleged to have sold drones to Russia, there's a campaign and pressure on Iran to be kicked out of the forthcoming World Cup in Qatar. It's ridiculous because yes, Ukrainians has got the right to defend themselves, but sports should be separate. If Britain, America, France, and all these countries can are allowed to supply weapons to Ukraine, why were they not kicked out? And secondly, why is it that some several times ago or in the past and we still have the issue anyway, whereby you have African countries that fight, engage in war, maybe not just Africa. We've had countries in the past that are engaged in war, and they are still able to take part in sporting activities, World Cup and so on and so forth. So he is clearly right when he said when things start working out or when it suits them, the goalposts are moved or the rules are changed to achieve their aim. That's correct. I do agree with that. And there was an attempt, according to President Mr. Putin, the so-called neocons continuously made attempts to drive everyone under the same template, and he believed that the effort, this plan to drive everyone under the same template or everyone should be using the same template is doomed. And even yes, they might have their own view how things should be run, but according to Mr. Putin, they have no right to impose their own will and ways of life on other people, which is true also. It may feel like you are right, And that is part of democracy anyway. You cannot force your own views on others. And when we think about it, majority of the world do not have this view, because when you think about country like India with 1 point something billion, and China, and then most of Africa, you already have more or less 60% of the world population that do not have the same view. So in terms of majority, it is different. And most of Middle East also, they do not have the same Western values or views. Um, there was also a statement about the fact that the West has stolen Russia's gold and foreign reserves. Yeah, it's correct. I think some earlier this week or sometime this week, the EU president von der La crazy or von der La something actually stated the intention is not to freeze Russian assets, but to seize it and use it to reconstruct or do whatever they want to do with it, or maybe share the money among themselves. Uh, there was also he also made reference to the use of dollar as a weapon, which he felt is wrong, because basically what has happened now is that many countries do no longer see dollar as a reserve currency. It is now clear that, okay, if you should do something against America or some of these Western country, they could fuck up sorry, pardon my language, they could mess up your economy. And as such, many countries will sooner or later switch to trading in the local other currencies or their own national currencies. And once again, President Putin made reference to the collapse of the Soviet Union. He said the collapse of the Soviet Union destroyed the balance of political forces in the world, which was true, or which is true. Because prior, anyone that is old enough will realize that when we have Soviet Union or the Eastern Bloc, okay, it's got its own flaws and downside. It was difficult for United States or the West to impose their own view. Then you have two superpowers. Now you have one superpower. He also seemed to he just recognized the fact that financially and in terms of being the world superpower, Russia is nowhere near America. In terms of the maybe nuclear technology, yes, but in other areas, he concede, yes, they are leading us. And he said, as far as he's concerned, the country that is competing and has got the ability to compete and eventually more or less be number one economically is China. That maybe in the future, Russia might also be able to compete economically, financially, but at this point in time, it's not possible. Which is a clear admission that, okay, yes, in terms of being able to continue to finance the conflict, the Ukrainian conflict, they might struggle, because they haven't got the same war chest as NATO countries financially. It doesn't mean when I say they might struggle, okay, yeah, they might have some financial pressures because it costs a lot of money to prosecute a war campaign, or this kind of operation, whatever you want to call it, special operation, war, conflict, all the same to me. A genuine unity of humanity is born out of dialogue, not do as I do or do as I say. What he was trying to say there is like this rule-based order should be negotiated and the other countries agree, not just one country or a few selected countries making the rules as it suits them and benefit their interest. And also, he went on about the neocons and globalists. As far as he is concerned, globalism is a dictate. People tell you what to do, which is similar to in terms of group-based order. Whereas integration is the development of mutually beneficial of development of development of mutually beneficial relationship. Anyway, one point that I really like to emphasize, which in my opinion seems to be indicating that Russia is prepared for the war for the next few years, or at least is prepared for um, a shift in global balance. The consequences of the shift is said, yeah, he said the most important and dangerous decade since World War II is ahead of us. The next 10 years or decades will be very, very dangerous, and it is very important because there is there are two tectonic plates that is about to meet, and they have to give way because one will not accept the other. They have to nail the two views, or maybe not two, maybe it could be three, it could be four, need to know how to live with each other. As far as it concerned, in the next couple of years, China will overtake United States in terms of maybe financial clout, and which I think is right. Anyway, on a more positive side, even though Israel and Lebanon is they are still officially at war, a frozen war, they were still able to sign an agreement on their maritime borders, which is a good step. The reason why I said it's a good point is it's good to talk. The United States must learn to talk to people that do not agree with them. Because at the end of the day, sooner or later they have to talk with Russia. They might not agree, but they need to talk to come to an agreement about to accommodate each other differences in a way. And as the French president said on his visit to the Vatican, and he requested that the Vatican should mediate between United States and Russia, which is a clear indication that should United States really want this war to come to an end, they have the means and ability and the necessary pressure to be able to encourage Ukrainians to go back to the negotiating table, which is what we all need. Anyway, and by the way, please don't forget to subscribe. It costs you zero, it costs nothing, nothing at all. And also remember to press the like button. Thank you very much. Stay blessed and have a very good time.